Helping Seniors Television, all about improving quality of life for seniors. If you're a senior, know a senior, or plan to be a senior, then this show is for you. It's all about helping you develop your own aging plan so you can age actively and with dignity. Helping Seniors Television from the Helping Seniors Network of information, education, and resources.
I'm Kerry Fink. Welcome to this edition of Helping Seniors Television. You know, Helping Seniors is the 501c3, that's just a fancy word for nonprofit, 100% local to Brevard County, that Joe Steckler, our president and founder, created after his successful career of building up Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation and getting them established with the Joe's Daycare Centers for Adults. And so even though he'd completed his assignment with the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation, which still serves folks here in Brevard County to this day, great organization, he felt like there was more work to be done helping seniors in Brevard because he said, Kerry, he said, not everybody has a cognition problem, but we all have different challenges that we face as we age. And so for that reason, Helping Seniors in Brevard was put together as a nonprofit, designed, and for now going into our 14th year of service, operating the County Senior Information Helpline, which is a free call to seniors and their families and those concerned about their friends and neighbors who are seniors. So that number, I'm going to give you that number and give you a chance to grab a pencil, is area code 321-473-7770. 321-473-7770. And kind of with that as a backdrop, I want to introduce you to our guest for today. She's a wonderful person who is a care manager. She's the owner of an organization called Emerald Care Management, but she also serves on our volunteer board of directors and helps. You'll catch her sometimes on the Senior Information Helpline, dispensing help and advice and guidance. We call it senior navigation for every kind of topic you would imagine. We get calls from housing to legal to medical to transportation, you name it, we've probably taken a call on it. And amazingly, so often we're able to find resources that are going to make a real difference. So with that in mind, I would like to introduce you to the owner of Emerald Care Management, but so grateful for her in her work here at Helping Seniors as well. Her name is Karen Wernlund. Welcome, Karen. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great today. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so glad we get this opportunity to talk because we titled the program, What Does a Care Manager Do? And I have to say this, you know, when you're younger and you're not so much concerned about the things of aging, you don't really understand. You figure like, well, I'll just cross that bridge when I come to it. And usually for a lot of us, our experience starts to change, maybe not necessarily first with us, but because now we're concerned about a loved one. It could be mom, dad, it could be an aunt or an uncle. And all of a sudden we realize we're getting into uncharted territory because they're needing help that they just didn't need to have a few years ago. And so, Karen, I thought, I don't want to oversimplify it because for a lot of us, it could be the first time somebody's heard the term care manager. So I don't want to overlook the obvious. I would like for you to explain what a care manager does.
I would have to say that the most important thing in my journey through being a care manager is observation. So when I go into someone's home, I need to observe how they live, how they walk, how they talk, how they wear their shoes, who's their support system, are they their own chef? So looking at everything around them and then gaining their trust. Because if they don't trust me, they're not going to share with me what they need the most.
Yeah.
So I always have a sharing care, which is 30 minutes to an hour, which I do not charge for, so that it's a chance that I meet them, they meet me. Is it going to work out? And mostly, I'm looking for the best, the easiest, and mostly the fastest way to keep them independent in their own home, doing their own, what they feel is their quality of life.
Yeah, and to do it safely, you know, because I think that's a thing that we often don't really think about very much. I can tell you, for instance, we get lots of calls from adult children of seniors who maybe have come down to visit mom or dad over a holiday or something like that. And they get back home and they're nervous and they call us and say, well, listen, mom and dad have been down there for a while and they always used to seem to be able to manage things on their own. But now we're concerned, this is going on or that's going on. And I think that's the point where maybe a care manager becomes a real godsend, because there's somebody that knows how to address those situations and keep folks safe at home longer.
Yes, keeping them safe. And with the children, with adult children whose parents are getting into their late 70s, early 80s, because today we can keep on going almost up to 90 years old, or even further. And it works so well if I do a wellness check for them. I can go and check on their parents. Do they still remember to plug their phone in every night? We are in the technological age, so there's a lot of things that Alexa can do for me, but they can't take the individuality. They can't. So when I call the adult child and share with them how mom and dad's doing, is it slightly worse than it was a month ago? Maybe. Should you be worried just yet? Maybe not. It's just, if they're still able to say, I need to go to the doctor, I need to go to the dentist, those are the things that I'm looking for. Are they wanting a great quality in their life? Do they still want a social life? Do they still want to know where their local senior citizen place is for them to go play bingo or whatever it is they love to play? I do have a background in psychology, and I try with all of my effort never to use it, because it's one of those things where you'll get in a lot of trouble. And so I use it for my own personal gain on how well they may or may not be doing, but I would never say to a client, I would never say to a client's child. What I would say is, he really needs to go see his doctor. He really needs to go to see a podiatrist. Whatever the necessary thing is, he's not really, or she's not really cooking for themselves that well anymore. So, because quality of food that you intake has a direct bearing on your quality of life. So if they're eating out of a box 5 different frozen meals each and every night, they're not getting quality food. Of course, I don't do that so well myself sometimes. We're all guilty of that. But are they trying to still live a good life, or do they need the assistance? How much distance is it between them caring for themselves or crossing the next bridge in life?
One of the things that it makes me think about as we're having the conversation is the fact that when you're talking about seniors, and as we move down the road, Joe Steckler, our president and founder, he always has talked about the importance of a thing called an aging plan. And I often liken it, I like to express it. I said, if those of us who live in Florida, we understand a hurricane plan. It means we do not wish a hurricane. In fact, we wish the opposite. But we want to know what we would do if they told us, one is coming our direction. We want to have a plan. We want to understand, this is where we're going to go. This is how we're going to keep our property safe, whatever those considerations are. And I think that's the point behind the aging plan. And I think anybody that is willing to take a look at constructing an aging plan, it means thinking about those things where you might need extra help as we get older. So, for example, when you talk to most people say, well, my preference is I want to age at home. I like my home. It's a good place for me. But then the question is, as we age, is it really safe for us the way we need it to be? So one of the things that I think is important about the work of a care manager is that you're there looking at all those aspects, not only the physical safety of the house or maybe modifications that might be necessary to keep it safe, but even the things that you touched on, like, are we getting the right nutrition? What are the factors that make somebody's senior years as successful as they can be.
One of the things that you really watch, and I've worked with a couple of clients that have immaculate degeneration, and so their cognitivity is high. They just can't see their bills. And so if I can get them to trust me, which is pretty easy for me, I think I'm a genuine kind of gal. And so while I work with them with their bills, it also lets me know, did they go to the grocery store? I can see that in their checkbook. I can see if they went to their doctor, or do they pay their bills online, or are they scared to pay online? Would they like to learn? I actually have one woman who wanted to see if she could learn to do it, because you can make the font on a computer extremely large. So that, and then in today's world, macular degeneration has a therapy that is a shot every 2 months that helps people see somewhat better for a longer period of time. So helping them, educate them with their own computer. I'm not totally savvy, but I have a lot to learn about computers, but the basic needs, paying your bills online, that kind of thing, I can help them with. And that gives the client such confidence to go about all their other daily needs. And now they can go, well, what else can I do to help myself? And I'm like, we can tidy up the clutter is a real safety risk.
Yeah.
Wires are a real safety risk.
Yep.
And very easy to just tie them up and put them in a little bread tie. Yep. Bread ties come in super handy for that kind of thing. And it doesn't take, you don't need a doctor. You don't need anybody to get that done. So just lighting, the light bulb's been changed, that kind of thing. And each time it gives them confidence. There are a few clients who embarrassment has a little bit to do with it. So they don't wish to use their walker or their cane outside their home. But I was told by someone, so let's say one of my clients is using a walker and they need to go to the doctor. So they're going to use a cane, but they don't want to use a cane because they have canes, but it's also where an antique might come in handy because they could get an antique cane. Now they got something really cool to have with them to go to and they feel so much better. So to me, it's about building their confidence to remain in their own home, and every little thing, even right down to the shoes they wear, because ill-fitting shoes are dangerous. They're a fall risk.
Sure.
And so if you wear the proper shoes, I mean, yeah, they don't have to be Dr. Scholl's fitting shoes. It could be pretty. They could be whatever you're looking for, but it's just following along and just looking in their closet. Is there a lot of stuff in there they're not wearing anymore? Well, let's just get that on down the road to whoever could use it. Yeah. And now you've got space to put some of your things away that you want to keep. Because my ideal thing is never to tell someone, you don't need this, you don't need that. My ideal thing is to adjust the home to be safe for them to live in by themselves.
You know, as you're talking through this, one of the things that I'm getting a sense for is that you're very careful to not be in a position of trying to, quote, control the person. Because I think it's a mistake a lot of times we as adult children do with our parents or loved ones, is we feel like we have to protect them. And so we're telling them what they're not supposed to do, which typically, I don't know, if you tell me what I'm not supposed to do, I get kind of resentful and I probably want to do almost the opposite, even if it's bad for me. And I think the reality is, it sounds to me like you take a lot of time to kind of, I would say it's almost like a diplomatic negotiation to make sure that you're moving them on the trend line of getting them safer, but making sure that you're taking it at the pace and the direction that they feel they're not being controlled or manipulated, but they're actually, this is something they want to do because it's going to help them succeed in the long run.
So I actually learned this technique through people who have parents who have dementia or Alzheimer's, which once they have that type of cognitive impairment, I'm on the spectrum where I'm on the lower end of the spectrum where your cognitivity, that isn't me right.
Cognition?
Thank you. Cognition is quite still well with us. Once you move on past that, then you have to move up the spectrum to someone who is more qualified to deal with you. But that being said, I was taught that the best thing you could do for a dementia client or someone with Alzheimer's or cognitive impairment is meet them at their level. Mm-hmm. Well, even if they don't have a cognitive impairment, if I meet them at their level, then I'm trying to build, again, their confidence, which is so important to anyone who's living alone. If you're not confident, then every little issue is overwhelming. And that's how you have to get on down the road to, do you want to live in assisted living? Do you need memory care facility? And it's so funny that you mentioned it, when you get told something and you're going to do opposite. So elder care management started because I took care of my dad for 8 years. And Kerry is so right. Don't tell him what he has to do.
Yeah.
Because he was cognitively aware. He didn't want me to tell him what to do. And it was hard because you're the daughter at that point in time. And I'm like, I'm trying to care for you, Dad. Well, even that whole 8-year experience gave me a lot of experience what not to do.
You know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about just that when you are a relative to the senior that you're talking about, it seems like there's a built-in challenge. It's just that much more difficult because, you know, in the roles, you know, as if it was your parent, then as you're growing up, they were the authority figure. And now here you're having to some degree try to take on that point of an authority figure. And that's very difficult as those roles reverse. Or even in the case of a more distant relative, an aunt or an uncle, it could still be the same sort of dynamic. Who are you, young whippersnapper, to tell me what I need to be doing? And I think that's one of the neat things that people underestimate about the value of what you do as a care manager, because you actually, it may sound a bit expansive, but you kind of broke your piece because you're that independent party that's seeing what's going on. You can kind of cut past some of the relational issues and say, look, if we're going to keep dad or mom safe, then these are the things we ought to do. And so you're there to kind of, I don't want to say mediate because that's not the right word, but you're there to, you're angling for success for everybody who's involved.
I am. And in actuality, when you are the daughter, when you are the son, when you are doing what you feel you need to do because they brought you up,
yep,
then it kind of gets muddled.
Yeah.
And so really the best thing a son or a daughter could do for their parent is to hire a care management person to come in and say, you know what? He's okay. He's doing all right. You don't need to worry about all these things. It's what you feel they need, not what they feel they need.
Yeah.
So it's meeting them on their own turf.
You know, I talked to a lot of people who are caregivers through the pandemic days. And one of the things that people realized was, because I guess a lot of times, you know, if we live in a snowbird world where, you know, somebody's down here for the winter months and then they head back north for summer climate and things like that. Mm-hmm. But as years go on, they tend to be more and more down south. And then maybe they're up there with family, the kids are up north. Then particularly in the world of COVID where people it wasn't even a question. You couldn't, during those days, get on a jet plane and come down and see what's going on. And it made it so much more important for you as a caregiver to be able to give good reports, good status of what's going on, because there you're in a position to be kind of the hands, the eyes, the ears, and see what's going on. And even, I was going to add this is me conjecturing, but you can confirm or say it's not really the way it is. But I think also a lot of times people who are local, we have these great visions of grandeur that we're really going to be able to help get mom or dad to these doctor's appointments or the different things, but then life gets in the way and we're just staying busy. And so we're not even able to do the job that we hope we could do, which is, again, why having a care manager who's kind of assigned to that and looking out for us on that is really a help all the way around.
So what you really brought up here is a very serious term, the difference between a care manager and a caregiver.
Uh-huh.
And a caregiver is going to get, eventually, it was my dad, you get burnt out.
Yeah.
You know, your life was put on hold because you had to take care of dad. A care manager is going to come in there and go, don't you feel bad if you want to go to the concert next week? It's going to only make you better when you go visit with your mom and dad next Sunday.
Yes. Yes.
Taking care of the caregiver is part of that care management situation. Guilt is a terrible, it's hard to overcome, and it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Nobody questions whether you love your parents or not.
Right. Well, you know, there's another aspect to this as well, is having that third party who gives, you know, basically you permission to live your life. You know, I often use the analogy whenever we get involved in like caregiver conferences or things like that. It's not unlike the little safety lecture they give you when you get on board an airplane. And, you know, they say, okay, there's oxygen mask if needed. But if they drop down, you need to put yours on before you're trying to help the person seated next to you. And the reason is because if you pass out, you're not going to be able to help the person next to you. But isn't that such an appropriate story when we're talking about caregiving? If you burn yourself out, what's the poor person who's relying on you going to be able to do? And so getting that help is just another way to achieve success in that whole situation.
It's going to be a lot more successful for everyone involved, including the elder person. They're going to have more, I'll say, sunshine in their life because they're not being... When I took care of my dad, I didn't realize that I needed to be on his plane. I needed to look at it from his viewpoint.
Right.
I looked at it from my viewpoint, and as the years went by, I dropped out of everything I did. I dropped out of jazzercise. I dropped out of church because he couldn't go anymore, and that's not good for either side.
No.
Had we hired a care manager to come in a couple times a week to just share time, sometimes companionship, and there are other businesses out there that do the companionship side of it. Great. So we're not totally out of the ballpark. There are several companies where we're still dealing with the person who has a high cognitive level, that it's not, the price is not so far out in left field that the family can't afford it, or even the person.
Yeah.
I have a couple of clients who happily, pay my bill each week. And it was, I don't necessarily have to have my bill paid every week. It was, they wanted to make sure so that that makes them feel good.
Right.
They got their bill paid. They know they can have me next week.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole other side to this that we haven't even really brushed up against, which is the fact that when you are, like, let's say you're the family member trying to do the caregiving, the challenges for most of us, we don't really have a frame of reference or experience or background. So for us, being a caregiver typically is on-the-job training. Whereas when you have the ability to call somebody like yourself, Karen Wernlund with Emerald Care Management, the point is you have the experience. You've been through these waters. You know the twists and turns. And so you're able to help the family navigate even as things are progressing or things might need to go to another level. It's one of the points that Joe talks about a lot. He says, from your finances, when you're thinking about your aging plan, call in the right level of care for the stage that you're at, because typically things are progressive and will become more complicated, more expensive, later on. So let's preserve and let's use what we need wisely early on so that we're still prepared as we go down the road.
Absolutely, which is what I enjoy about my position as a care manager. the most because I am dealing with cognitive people that are pretty well aware of what's going on. And then as I see that, one of the things that is part of my job as a care manager is to find out how their support group is in this area, or is it a distance support group, or is there no support group whatsoever?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that will break your heart in a heartbeat, because right now they're fine. I can keep them going for maybe even a year with a little bit of help each week type of thing. But where's the next step?
Yeah.
So support is definitely high on my list to find out if there are people that will be supporting them on down the road.
Yeah. Well, Karen Wernlund with Emerald Care Management, thank you for taking time to share with us today a little bit about care management so that we get a better sense. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and maybe talk about their particular situation, or maybe even say, hey, this sounds like something, I'd like to see how this might make a difference in our situation, how do they get in touch with you?
I would love for them to reach out, and you can reach me at 321-622-8030. 321-622-8030. I would love to talk with anyone. Like I said at the very beginning, I have a share and care 30 minutes to an hour. It's no charge.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Karen Wernlund, for sharing with us about what a care manager can do for you. Good information that you need to know as you make your aging plan. Want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Helping Seniors TV. On behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, we will see you on the next episode. See you soon.
My pleasure.
I'm Joe Steckler. Thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.